In this video of my series on how to make a VR shooting range within Horizon Worlds, we are going to trick out our blaster. We're going to give it sound effects, visual hit marker effects. I'm talking controller haptics, and we're going to look at some of the new features of the projectile launcher. Stick around. Hi guys, my name is Tony and welcome back to Jackal Dude Gaming. Here, I like to have fun in VR, but I love helping you have fun there too. In the last video, we learned how to launch projectiles from our blaster using the projectile launcher gizmo and writing our first simple script. In this video, we are going to expand more upon that script by adding sound gizmos and triggering them the same way we trigger projectiles. We're also going to write a whole nother script to produce a hit marker visual effect, and we're even going to do controller haptics. So there's a lot to do. Let's get started. Actually, real quick before we get into it, I really want to take the second and thank you guys for all of the feedback you've been giving me on this series. The amount of channel growth and like really nice comments I've been getting from it has been very humbling, and I want to say thank you a lot. That really helps to push me make more of these series videos, and I'm going to continue to make more tutorials even after this one's done. So if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell notification so you know whenever one of those new series tutorials comes out. Alright, enough of that, let's get started.
Well, here we are back in our blank world with our blaster that we have now scripted to shoot projectiles. Every time I pull the trigger, we are launching a red blaster-like projectile from the front of this blaster. Fantastic. First, I want to start by tricking out this blaster. And the DL44 or any other blaster isn't a blaster unless it goes pew pew. So let's make this blaster have some cool sound effects. We're going to go into build mode like we've done before. Now we'll hit the menu button on our left hand. And back where we've been through shapes, we've been through gizmos. Now we're going to go through sounds. So the Horizon library actually has a large library of sounds, and you can pretty much find whatever you're looking for. But in the search menu, let's just type laser. See if we can get cool laser sounds. And to kind of preview these sounds, you kind of just hover your cursor over them. So every time we put our cursor over one of these sound blocks, we kind of get a laser. So laser shoot. It's okay. How about laser one? Ooh. I think we can play with laser shoot one. And now we pull that out just like any other gizmo. Sometimes it makes two, so just delete the one you don't need. But now this is a soundbite gizmo, just like the gizmos we've used for projectile launcher or this script gizmo. And with that being said, we can resize it. And while putting our cursor in it and pressing up, we bring up this soundbites property panel. Same, we can resize it, we can move it. So what we're going to do here is very similar to what we did in the last video. So whenever we shoot the blaster, we want the sound to happen. Ideally, we want that sound to happen from the blaster. So we need to add this soundbite gizmo to the blaster's group, just like we did last time. So I'm going to put it roughly where I want it. Right under the barrel is fine. Remember, it doesn't really matter as long as it's in the group, because it's going to be coming from this gizmo, but the gizmo won't be visible or collidable once we play the game. So we're going to select it. Nope. Uh-oh. No. Remember, we want to make sure it's got that blue wireframe to know it's selected. And we'll just put it right there for now. And then we'll go over to the blaster's property panel. And up at the above, we see this button that says press to zoom in or out of group. When we press that, you see we're in that dark mode again, where the only thing we can access is this group. And all we want to do is press the index trigger up in the air randomly to unselect that box. See? Boop. Now that's unselected. Because it is unselected, when we leave this mode, we will leave this behind, which then adds it to this group. So let's go ahead and leave this group mode. And every time I do that, I like to just shake the object just to test it. Yep, that sound gizmo is going to move with the rest of the blaster. Perfect. Now let's take a look at that sound gizmo's properties panel. You see we can preview the sound whenever we want. Every time we click this, it'll make the noise. We don't want it to have it play and start. I never like that this is on by default, but you don't want this random blaster noise to play on world start because you're going to make your players very confused and scared. And here you have the volume, so we can adjust that. You know, you don't want it to be too loud if it's going to be right next to you the whole time. I think that's fine. And the pitch, we can actually change what the sound sounds like by adjusting the pitch. I want the DL44 to feel like a powerful blaster, so I want it to be a more deep, guttural pew noise. So I'm going to drop the pitch a little bit and see what happens. And we'll play. That's pretty good. I don't think I want it that deep. Move it up a little bit. Yeah, I like that. It's cool. All right, that's where we're going to put it. Let's go a little bit lower. Global would mean everyone in the whole world will hear it whenever it makes that noise. We probably don't want that. And now the minimum and maximum distance also determines how far a player can be from the source to be able to hear it. So 100 units away seems pretty much the whole world. We don't want that. Let's do like 7. 7 is fine. Anywhere from like 10 to 5 makes sense for like a small arms fire or whatever. But yeah, that's going to be fine just so at least we know we'll always be able to hear it. And we're going to leave this properties panels up just like this because we're going to need to access it later. So now, obviously, we want the sound to only play when we pull the trigger. Well, to do that, we are going to add on to our script that we made last time, the fire script. Bloop. So if you remember last time, we set some ownership to the certain objects to make it work on this local script. And when the index trigger is pressed while grabbed by a player, we will launch the projectile. So we're simply just going to add another command under this prompt. So when we pull the trigger, it will launch the projectile and it will play from our sound effect. First thing we're going to do is we're going to make the sound effect its own variable, just like we did with the launch gizmo. Remember, if you want to access another object other than the object you are attaching the script to, you need to make it a variable. So we're going to add a variable. We're just going to call it SFX. Blam, simple. And it has to be put into an object. Again, most gizmos are going to be objects, so we'll confirm that. Nice. Now that's all ready to go. Let's go on to our actions. We don't need to go to events because the events we want are already here. So let's go to actions and we will find one called under sound, play sound. That's perfect. So we'll put play sound right under launch projectile from barrel. And you see with this blue bar going down, we can make sure that this is underneath of this event. Now, again, whenever you put another command on there, by default, it's going to put self here. We don't want the blaster model itself to try to play a sound because it doesn't know how to do that. So we will put in our new SFX variable there. Boom. Easy. Now, to make sure that the sound effect is playing at the same time as the projectile gets launched, we want to make sure it is local on the local script still. So we're also going to need to transfer ownership of the sound effect to the player, just like we did with the model and the projectile launcher. So a real cool trick here, we'll just duplicate one of these lines. So we'll grab it, and then on our wrist here, we'll just move our stick to the right. Bloop. And look, we've made a completely another one. Obviously, we don't want to double assign barrel, so we'll just take the SFX pill and put it over barrel. Blam. So now we're also assigning ownership of that gizmo to the player who's holding the blaster. Perfect. And now we're done modifying that for the sound effect. The only thing we have left to do is to make sure that we know that the blaster knows that this sound effect is what we mean when we say SFX. So we'll go back to the properties panel of the object that has the script attached to it, which is the blaster, which we kept open over here. See, now that we've made a new variable, we have the variable here, SFX, as empty. Sometimes if you're just changing it on here, this won't pop up right away. All you would have to do is close out the window and then go to your object and reopen the properties panel and it would pop up there. Luckily, this time it seemed to be cooperative. But just like we did with the properties launcher, we are going to go to our little soundbite gizmo, laser shoot 1 pill. We'll just take that with the index trigger and we'll drop it in here. And again, we get our little blue squiggly line to let us know these two property panels are now connected. So now our script will know that when we ask to play or do things with the SFX variable, it really means this sound gizmo. Now that should be it for sound effects. Let's go see if it works. Pop into preview mode, let's grab our blaster, and yeah, it is already feeling like a blaster now. As fast as we shoot it, it'll play the sound effect every time. Nice. That's already feeling more like a realistic blaster from Star Wars. Alright, now that that's done, what do we want to do next? How about some haptics? When you shoot a powerful blaster like the DL44, you want to feel that vibration in your hand, and Horizon World lets us control controller haptics. So, really easy. We are going to add controller haptics to when you press the index trigger. So let's go to Events. And let's scroll down to Player. Play haptics on Player Controller. And we're just going to take that, blam, and we're going to drop it right under here. Now, so play haptics on right hand. That's what we want for right now because I've been using it on my right hand. Of player, and we need to figure out what player it is. Obviously, we want the player who's pressing the controller while grabbing the object. So we'll just take this player, index it, and then drop it here. Perfect. For 10 milliseconds, that's fine. That's one quick sharp blast, just like we shoot a blaster. But let's make this powerful. So let's make it strong, and yeah, let's leave it sharp. Now when we press our index trigger, we will launch a projectile, we will play a sound effect, and we will get player haptics on our right hand. Let's go test that out. Nice. And I know there's no way to show you that this is working, but my right controller is vibrating every time I pull this trigger, kind of giving you that instinctive feel that this thing has a little bit of kick. Now, there's one crucial problem with that script. So if I were to move this to the left hand, because I can grab it with the left hand and shoot, the weird sensation is because we set it to the right hand. So every time we launch this and shoot this, our right hand is still vibrating, not our left hand. So that is an issue. I wish it would be a little more fine-tuned in like the hand that the object is held in. But for now, there is a way around that. I'll probably go into that into another video. If you want to know how to make sure it vibrates in the correct hands, let me know in the comment below and I'll make a short video on that. But for now, I only plan on using this blaster with my right hand, so I'm just going to leave it as is. So now we've added some sound effects, we've added some haptics. Now let's add a hit marker. Whenever we shoot the blaster and we hit something, we want to know we hit it. Other than just the projectile disappearing, we want some kind of visual effect to know we hit the blaster. So we're going to play with some visual effects. Okay, so off camera, I made this random rock formation. I just added a couple of shapes, I added some texture to it and some color, and now those are just some random rock formations, just so we have something to shoot at and something to collide with, because this is just an empty world. What we want is our projectile that shoots out of our blaster. When it hits something, we want some kind of visual indicator. So actually for that, we are going to make a whole different script. Because it's focusing purely on the projectile and not the blaster itself, we want to make a script that will actually go onto the projectile launcher. Also, I almost forgot to mention, they actually updated the projectile launcher quite a bit. So now we can actually switch the type of projectile we want. We can switch it to pistol. I'll show you what that looks like. It's just like a smaller circle, which is fine. We can switch it to a rocket, which is really cool because it adds this really gnarly looking trail effect for rockets, which you could easily make that a magic spell. Or you could switch that to a grenade. Just like in the last video, I talked about making a grenade launcher with a little bit of gravity and less speed, and now you can actually launch a whole grenade. It's a little fast, so it's hard to see it, but yeah, a whole grenade. So for us, let's utilize it, and we're actually going to make it the pistol. I think that's fun. And here we can actually also change the trail length if you don't want the trail to be so long. So let's actually change this to 0.5, half of the normal trail length. And yeah, so it doesn't have that whole long line that goes all the way back to the blaster. I think I like that. I'm going to leave that at 0.5. Nice. And if we wanted no trail, if you just wanted a solid bullet or something or projectile, you could just set that to flat 0. I do wish they would have a different projectile color for the trail as the object, but maybe in a future update. Okay, enough about the updates of the projectile launcher. Let's make a visual effect whenever our blaster hits a solid object. So first, we're going to grab 2 gizmos. We are going to grab a whole separate script gizmo. Remember, this script only has to do with the projectile launcher. So we're actually going to attach this script straight to the projectile launcher. And we're going to need a visual effect. So we will pull out this ParticleFX gizmo. You see how it just made an effect? Let's look at that a little bit closer. So let's size this down and then open up the properties panel. So very similar to the sound gizmo, we have play and start, which we don't want. Bloop. We don't want it to loop, and the kind of effect that we want. So right now, by default, it's just set to this like smoke poof, which is really cool for a small explosion or to make something disappear. Really cool effect. But the one I really like using is this hit ring. So we set it to hit ring, and now you see there's a little kind of area of effect, hit ring effect. I just said effect a lot. Let's make this a little bit smaller because we want it to feel like when our small projectile hits something, it makes just like a little bit of impact. Yeah, I think I like that. We're going to leave that there. So the one thing we're not going to do with this that we've done with our other gizmos is add it to the group, because we don't want this effect to always happen on our blaster. Actually, we never want it to happen on our blaster. We want this to only happen if our projectile hits something. So we're actually just going to leave this out floating in the world. And what we're going to do is we're going to script in our projectile script that this is going to teleport to the point of collision and then play its effect. And I'll show you how to do that now. So let's start making the script for a projectile launcher. We're just going to call this script hit, just so we can differentiate our 2 scripts from each other. When world is started, doesn't matter. We'll put that away. So this is going on our projectile launcher. There are some cool events that we can use with projectile launchers. So if we scroll down, you see we have a whole projectile events section. So we're going to put when projectile hits a static object. Now, those rock formations I made over there, because I didn't make them interactive, I didn't make them animated, they are considered static objects. They just exist in that space and they'll never move from that space as long as they're static. So that's considered a static object. Basically, when our projectile launcher hits a static object, we want our particles effects to teleport to that point of impact and play itself. So when we put the when projectile hits static object, you see we get this position and the normal. This is super important. So whenever a projectile hits a static object, it gathers some information, and the information it gathers is where in the world, in your world, the position, the exact coordinates, if you will, did this collision happen, and what side of that object it hit did it hit on. We won't need this as much. We're going to focus on this position. So with that, when a projectile hits static object, that is our action. What do we want to happen? Well, we want our effects to move to that point. So we will go to the little motion tab and we will take the very first one, move to. This move to will be instantaneous. So move self to a position or a vector, as these are called. You can tell they're vectors because they're green and they have this little directional symbol. So again, we don't want to move, this script is going onto our projectile launcher. We don't want to move our launcher to that point. We want to move that particle effect. So just like our sound effect, we are going to make a variable for it. New variable, we're going to put hit ring. Hit ring. Oops. And again, this is an object. You're starting to see a pattern now. Hit ring. So we'll move hit ring over to self, blam. And this is not the vector we want it to go to. We want to go to whatever the position that our projectile gathers. So all we have to do is take this and drop it right here. That easy. So now every time our projectile hits a static object, it is going to teleport, aka move, our particle effect to that point. Well, once it gets there, we also want it to play the effect. So very similar to our sound effect, we're going to go down under VFX, video effects, and we're going to play, and we're going to pick play visual effects and pop that right under there. Now, play visual effects, again, we don't want it on self, we want it on the hit ring particle effect, which we had made a variable for, so we're going to take our variable and also pop it in there. Now, that's it for that script. Another really small and simple script. The only difference is that we're going to attach this to the projectile launcher instead of the blaster itself, and we still need to reference what a hit ring is. So let's put that aside, and we'll move this aside. And these scripts can live wherever. I like to put them around the spawn point personally, so I always know where they are, but they can live wherever. And remember, this can also live wherever it wants because it's constantly going to be teleported. But let's bring it over here for now because we're going to need that pill. So our projectile launcher panel is still open. Awesome. Remember, if you've accidentally closed it or forgot to open it, you can go into the group setting, that dark mode of the blaster, and then access the properties panel. It's there. When you leave, you'll still have access to it. So just like we did in the last video with our blaster, we're going to go to attach script and hit the drop down menu. And remember, this is going to have all the scripts we've made in this world. So we have fire script. We don't want to add that. We want to add our new hit script. Just like the other one, it's sensing that we've made a variable, so now it wants to know what that variable is, the hit ring. So we go over to our visual effects gizmo, we grab that projectile, and we drop it there. Amazing. And that's pretty much it. Let's go see if this thing works. We're going to press up into preview mode. Let's grab this and let's shoot some rocks, hey? Yeah, there it is. You can see that it is playing the little hit marker. It seems to be a little bit out of an angle, but I think it's just because I made such a big structure. But this is like anything that's considered a static object. Technically, this floor is a static object. So whenever I shoot the floor, that hit ring will pop up. And really what's happening is that little gizmo we made for the particle effect is just teleporting every time I hit something. So let's hit the side of that real quick, and let's go back into build mode. Now, as you can see, by this long line, because this is the last thing we shot, this is where it teleported our little projectile. Oh, I'm sorry. This is where it teleported our little particle effect, and then it played itself. And there you are. In this short video, we've added a sound effect, we've added some visual hit markers, and we've added controller haptics. And with that, I would say our blaster is pretty much done in terms of making it look good, making it sound good, making it feel good. The blaster is good to go for our VR shooting range. In the next episode, we are going to quickly make some targets. We're going to actually build the range of our shooting range, and then we are going to script some interactions between the blaster and the targets we make. We've briefly already started that with the projectile effects. So again, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to rewind. I'll have plenty of timestamps, or let me know in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer your questions. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll check you next time.